Thank you all for joining us today. You are here with the Sustainability Alliance for First Thursday, and we are delighted to have you join us. I know we have a few more people coming into the room, but again, thank you. This month, we welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Ann Money, Director of Development and Research at the Oklahoma Aquarium here in Jinx, Oklahoma, to discuss how we can all contribute to the health of our blue planet wherever you live, by an ocean or not. So thank you for being with us today, and we're looking forward to the insights and expertise you have to share with us on this important topic. Before we begin, though, the presentation, we'd like to make a few announcements, and we want to thank you all for joining us and supporting the Sustainability Alliance and sustainability in your community. There's going to be a poll that we're launching now, and this, if you don't mind, just take a few moments to answer those questions. Really helps us understand the impact that we're having with our education and making sure that we're better serving you. So that'll pop up there in just a moment in the window. So if you'll just take a minute while I'm sharing a few announcements to take that poll. Programming like First Thursday, though, would not be possible without our sponsors and the support of them. So we want to say a big thank you to the following sponsors who have helped bring First Thursdays like these to our screen each month. We want to thank our lead sponsor, Williams, our neighborhood partners, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, PSO Wind Choice, and our community advocates, Covanta, The Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Air Systems, Tulsa Farmers Market, Bank of the West, Camp Trevera, and the Sustainable Advisors Alliance. So give them a round of applause. Send them a text if you know them, and give them a thanks for the fact that they're helping us bring sustainable education to our community. So I also want to thank our wonderful Sustainable Alliance board members, and we appreciate all that you do to support us further in our mission. Ann Money is one of our board members, and we're gracious to have your support today and in every way. You are such a great supporter of the Alliance, and we greatly appreciate that. We've also just added a new board member that we'll be sharing with you soon, which is Lindsay Babur, and we're so glad to have her on our team now. I'd finally like to thank the incredible Sustainable Alliance team as well, who works hard to bring this program to you. Teresa Kerrigan, Jill Maud, and Morgan Fairley. Soon we're going to be announcing a couple other team members, so stay tuned. We're excited about growing our team. And if you want to support the work that we do, becoming an individual supporter is very important to the Sustainability Alliance, and it's easy. For $25 or more, your name can be added to the growing list of change makers in our community. Your support helps further our sustainability education, like the Bellman Awards, First Thursday's B2B Case for Sustainability Series, Scorecard, TerraScore. All of that support helps us get these programs out to you and helps us track how our community is doing around sustainability and where we need to continue to improve and support each other. So click on that link in the chat and donate today. Really appreciate it. We thank you for your support. I also want to thank everyone that was able to join us for our first Green Drinks of the year. That was just this week on Tuesday, the 28th. It took place at Neff Brewing here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Green Drinks aims to be a low-key social gathering where you can connect with each other, network, and make our community and sustainability more integrated here. And we had such a great time. I will let you know when the next one's coming up, but it was just a way to be able to see some folks in person in the Tulsa area. But that's why we continue to offer First Thursdays online, because we know our community is growing outside the Tulsa area, and we don't want to miss seeing you as well. So thank you for being here. The Sustainability Alliance also has a Facebook group to help better connect our community. And if you would like to connect with sustainably minded folks, join the Facebook group today. Teresa will put that link in there for you. And we also have TerraScore, so that's another way to connect. And so we'll have some more there in just a minute about that. But that's another way to connect through the app we just launched last month, TerraScore. So now I'd like to start a video to thank our lead sponsor, Williams, to tell you a little bit about what they're doing in the community.
At Williams, we're focused on adding new technology and operating practices that deliver right here, right now reductions in global emissions, cutting-edge emissions measuring and monitoring, certifiable and transparent emissions data, real-time energy optimization across the natural gas value chain, integration and delivery of the fuels of the future. meeting global energy demand and global climate goals. For us, this is just the beginning. Williams, we make clean energy happen.
Big thank you to Williams. They've been a longtime supporter of First Thursday, so thank you so much. And we also want to say thank you to our neighborhood partners at PSO who want to share with you information about their solar calculator and rebate opportunities. So visit them online to learn more. You can also reach out to Carrie Rowland directly at krrowland@aap.com. She'd love to hear from you. And again, a longtime supporter of the Sustainability Alliance and First Thursday. We also want to say thank you to the Met, who offers recycling services throughout the year through their drop-off sites and special recycling events, the Met. So check them out. They're also proudly provides meaningful employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. So find out more by visiting them at metrecycles.com. And Save Our Streams is the City of Tulsa's department that promotes healthy waterways. Good timing for today's event as well, and pollution prevention through their stormwater quality program. So for environmental inspections and household pollutant collection, they offer various services to help you and help our streams. So get in touch with them. That's at stormwaterquality@cityoftulsa.org. Great resource there. And if you're curious about carbon footprinting of your purchases, well, Bank of West exclusively offers this service through their mobile app and donates 1% of net revenue from your bank account to 1% for the planet and at no cost to you. So questions, or if you want to sign up, call Eric Anders at 918-877-4577. That's a great service. And next, we have the Tulsa Farmers Market, which takes place every Saturday from May to November in the Kendall Whittier district. The spring market is about to start on April 1st. And if you've never been, we encourage you to make this your first season to support local farmers market and makers. And if you're out of the Tulsa area, find where your farmers market is and support your local farmers. You won't regret it. It's a great experience. And last but not least, Sustainable Advisors Alliance, an innovative co-op financial advisor group that can help you manage your investment portfolio in a sustainable manner and provide solutions for your profit bottom line. So they offer no minimum requirements to start investing your dollars today. So get in touch with Julie Skye and learn more by visiting their website. So many great sponsors and the things that they do. Hopefully they'll drop a little note in the chat so you can reach out to them directly. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And now is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ann Money, who will be presenting on Think Blue to Go Green. Dr. Ann Money is the Director of Development and Research at the Oklahoma Aquarium and has worked as an environmental educator, fisheries biologist, and conservation scientist since 1994, and graduated from George Mason University, earning a bachelor's degree in biology with an emphasis on environmental management. In 2020, she received her doctorate in integrative biology from the Oklahoma State University. She researched coral biofluorescence to help endangered wild reef systems. Her studies have also focused on how a school field trip to a public aquarium impacts a student's interest in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So Anne is passionate about education, serving the community, and sustainability. She grew up in Washington, D.C. area and spent her childhood on the Chesapeake Bay. From there, she relocated to Seattle, where she worked aboard a commercial fishing boat to collect data used to protect fish populations. And has also worked for the National Marine Fisheries Service Protected Species Branch in Galveston, Texas, so with endangered sea turtles. So in 2000, though, we had the pleasure of her moving to Tulsa to open up the Oklahoma Aquarium. So 20 years and 3 children later, she calls Tulsa her home. Welcome, Dr. Ann Money.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I need to make my bio a little shorter. That went on and on. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, so as Corey said, my name is Anne and I'm with the Oklahoma Aquarium. This is our very fancy new logo. I'm very pleased with it. It's in honor of our upcoming 20th anniversary of the aquarium. It's hard to believe, but we were really excited to get the new logo launched with our iconic bull shark. So the mission of the aquarium is to educate and inspire conservation of our aquatic world through interactive discovery. And we fulfill this mission every day with our 10,000 animals, our exhibits, our graphics, our education programs, and our community partnerships. We have a sustainability initiative called Think Blue to Go Green. And so Think Blue to Go Green is a theme that runs through everything at the aquarium and everything that I'll be talking about today. So what does it mean to think blue to go green? Well, 71% of our planet is covered by water. So you have to think blue in order to go green. There's no way to think about planet conservation and sustainability without thinking about the ocean. So we often feel like we're very far removed here from the ocean. We're about 600 miles. But if you look at where we are in Oklahoma and you start panning out and you look down, you'll see where Galveston is in Beaumont. That's about 600 miles away. And that's obviously the Gulf of Mexico. So you keep panning out and that 600 miles gets smaller and smaller and smaller, or seems smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you look at the planet as a whole, it's blue. It's predominantly blue. So I always like to say that so that people kind of get that first understanding of, yes, we are in the middle of the United States. Yes, we are landlocked, but we're just as much a part of the ocean, and our impact on the ocean is just as important as anywhere else in the world. So because we are a blue planet, water is of course essential and important, and everything lays within a watershed. And a lot of you probably already know what a watershed is. So forgive me if I'm over explaining, but it's a land area where all of the water, the snowmelt, the rainfall, runs into a body of water. So from the streams to the creeks to the rivers to bays, lakes, and oceans. So this is also all part of the water cycle. Again, I'm just going through this really, really quickly. So the water that falls onto a specific watershed travels down, goes to a body of water, but that's not obviously where it stops. So we have a finite amount of water on the planet, and it's just constantly recirculating. So the way that I think about it is that when you're looking at a drop of rain that falls on the ground and it absorbs into the ground, well, that is not the end of its life, of course. So it's going to keep going, and that drop of water, rainwater, is going to keep cycling through this cycle, landing in a new watershed, going to another body of water, so on and so forth. So this is a really cool little tool that I wanted to put out there for everybody, so you can see what your watershed is by just putting in your zip code. And not only, we'll go ahead and do it. So not only can you see what your watershed is, you can see the health of your watershed. So let's go ahead and just put in for where the aquarium is. And you see, so this is our watershed right here. And there's 5 water bodies that make up our very small watershed. And so here we've got Coal Creek, and the conditions are unknown. So that's what that purple means. It means we don't know how healthy or unhealthy that body of water is. But here now you have a healthy body of water. So you see it's green, and it's just kind of a cool way to know, is this a safe place to fish, to swim, to eat the animals out of, so on and so forth. And then you go down here and you've got a very unhealthy system. So this is an impaired system. And if you click on it, it'll actually pull up everything as to why. So drinking water unknown, aquatic life impaired. So that probably means that there's not as much biodiversity as they were expecting to see in that particular body of water. And one of the big monitoring organizations in town is Blue Thumb, and they're really amazing. And if you're ever interested in helping them with water quality monitoring, I'm sure that they would appreciate the help. But this zooms out and you can go anywhere. I mean, you can click anywhere and find out what the watershed is for the area. So it's just kind of a fun little tool. Okay. So then the Arkansas River, it's what runs through Tulsa. It's what runs to the east of the aquarium, behind the aquarium. It is one of several waterways that connects to the Mississippi River. And everything in the Mississippi River eventually pours into the Gulf of Mexico, right? So the watershed for the Gulf of Mexico, which our little watershed is a part of this greater watershed, the Mississippi River watershed is the largest in the country. So a huge part of our nation, everything that happens in it ends up affecting the Gulf of Mexico. So you can kind of see there how vast it is. So what is our impact on the Gulf of Mexico specifically? So even 600 miles from the coast are, as I said, our actions do directly impact the world's oceans. So each summer there is a 6,000 plus square mile dead zone that forms in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's due to overuse of fertilizers, pesticides, and urban runoff primarily. So those are things that are happening right here. They're happening in Tulsa, in St. Louis, in all of these areas in the middle of the country that directly are feeding into or indirectly feeding into the Mississippi, which is going down to the Gulf. So we actually here in the middle of the country have more impact on the Gulf of Mexico and therefore the oceans throughout the world than a lot of other areas. It's a big responsibility, right? So I'm going to play this very short video because I think it gives a really concise idea about what I mean by a dead zone, what a dead zone is, and what the big harm is in having this dead zone every summer.
The numbers are in. The 2019 Gulf of Mexico hypoxic zone, or dead zone, an area of low oxygen that can kill fish and marine life near the bottom of the sea, measures 6,952 square miles. This is the 8th largest dead zone in the Gulf since mapping of the zone began in 1985. It begins innocently enough. Farmers use fertilizers to increase the output of their crops so that we can have more food on our tables and more food to sell to the rest of the world. But it is this agricultural runoff combined with urban runoff that brings excessive amounts of nutrients into waterways that feed the Mississippi River and starts a chain of events in the Gulf that turns deadly. These nutrients fuel large algal blooms that then sink, decompose, and deplete the water of oxygen. This is hypoxia. When oxygen in the water is so low, it can no longer sustain marine life in bottom or near bottom waters. Literally, a dead zone. When the water reaches this hypoxic state, fish and shrimp leave the area, and anything that can't escape, like crabs, worms, and clams, die. So the very fertilizers that are helping our crops are disrupting the food chain and devastating our food sources in the ocean when applied in excess. If the amount of fertilizer, sewage, and urban runoff dumping into the Gulf isn't reduced, the dead zone will continue to wreak havoc on the ecosystem and threaten some of the most productive fisheries in the world.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so the way that I look at this, and the way that I look at the dead zone, and I try to kind of put it in context for people, is that it happens because we're doing things that are very important to us as a species, right? We're growing food, and that's crucial. But clearly we have to find some better ways to do this, and more manageable and sustainable ways to grow our food and to control our urban runoff, our non-point source pollution, all of those things. And at the end there, they brought up the fishing grounds and the commercial fisheries. And a lot of people don't realize that 40% of our planet, their main source of protein comes from the ocean. So it's not just so we can get a McFish sandwich, it's so that people can actually get the protein that they need in order to survive. So when we disrupt those fisheries, that's a very big deal. So when we disrupt the balance in the ocean, that directly impacts not only the animals that live and the organisms that live in the ocean, but it directly impacts us as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So it's not just fertilizers and pesticides that are running into the water. There's also debris. So there's pollution, and about 80% of that debris is plastic. That trash is plastic. So we dump the equivalent of a dump truck full of plastic into the ocean every 1 minute. So that's a lot. Obviously. So 8.3 billion tons of plastics have been produced since the 50s. Half of that has been within the past 15 to 20 years. If you think about that, that's amazing, right? We're talking 70 years worth of production. 300 million tons of plastic are produced every year. 8 million of that ends up in our oceans. So about 16 billion pounds ends up in the ocean every year. And here's what's crazy to me is that 50% of those plastics are single use. So the lifespan of a piece of plastic is about 12 to 14 minutes. And if you look around you right now and you see all the things that have plastic on them, your phone case, whatever it may be, that you may use, maybe not a phone case, but things that you'll use for years, but still the lifespan is 12 to 14 minutes. So that shows you how disposable plastic is for us as a society. We are a plastic throwaway society. 500 million straws a day, 1 million plastic bags a minute, and 1,500 water bottles per second, which is just amazing to me. So when it gets to the ocean, there's a lot of impact from it. There's a lot of consequences of it. So you have 2/3 of all fish species have ingested this plastic. You have microplastics that are formed, and we'll talk a lot more about that here in a moment. But one thing that I think a lot of people maybe don't realize is or probably a lot of people in this group do, but when you're disposing of your plastic waste, only about I'm not talking about just us locally, I'm talking about as a planet, 9% is recycled, 12% is incinerated, and 79 to 80% ends up in a landfill or the ocean. So we really need to find a better way to dispose of our trash, right? So this is another cool little thing, and this is Jerry Fleming from GRDA brought this to my attention. It's this cool website called River Runner. And so we can actually follow a piece of debris or a raindrop, whatever the case may be, along its journey. So let's see, let's go right here, and let's go to Bristow, Oklahoma. And as you can see, it's going to follow the course from Bristow, Oklahoma, and it's going to hit all of these different bodies of water. And so we're going to make it go faster. Sorry if I make you a little seasick. There we go. So this just once again illustrates how connected everything is. But one thing that I want to point out about this, as you're watching where this piece of debris or drop of water is traveling, look at all of the other habitats and ecosystems it's hitting along the way. So you've got Walnut Creek, Deep Fork, North Canadian, Arkansas, Mississippi. So it's not just, from here to here, A to B. There's a lot of stops along the way. So whatever it is that's ended up in that body of water, whatever's ended up in Walnut Creek, whether it's a plastic bottle or a piece of other trash, whatever it may be, it is impacting every single stop along the way. And so we'll talk a little bit more here in just a moment about plastics and what happens when plastics are not disposed of properly. And if you'll keep in mind when we're talking about that, looking at this graphic that you just saw, this short video that you just saw, it will put it into a bit of perspective. So when trash hits the ocean, it follows currents, right? So it hits the Gulf of Mexico from where we are, our watershed, hits the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to travel around the world. So throughout the world's oceans, we have 5 major, what are called gyres, and those are centers of currents that come together, and they pull everything into the middle of this concentric current. And that's where these trash items usually end up. And the biggest one is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and that is between the coast of California and Hawaii. And this patch of trash, which is about 90% plastic, by the way, that's what most of the debris is it's 90% plastic. It wasn't discovered until 1997, and it was this man by the name of Charles Moore. He's a sailor, and he was happily sailing his way along the Pacific and ran into this 620,000 square mile patch of debris. Rather stunning, right? That would be a bad day sailing, which that would be hard to do. But so 620,000 square miles, but you have to remember that's just talking about how large it is. That's not talking about how deep the plastics go. So when they start to break down a little bit, they will dip and they will sink in the water column. And the estimate is that it can reach up to 6,500 feet deep, which is about 1.2 miles down. That's a huge amount of plastic. It's estimated there are 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic in the ocean and about 270,000 tons floating on the surface. One thing that I want to point out about this is that again, sorry with all the percentages, but it's how my brain works. So about 90% of all this debris that ends up in the ocean comes from rivers. So it's coming from the land down into the ocean. Now on the ocean, there's a lot of fishing lines. So fishing lines are a very big problem, fishing nets, things like that. But 90% of that debris is coming from places like the middle of the United States, and Indonesia and China, and it's actually 7 or 8 rivers that provide most of that debris to the ocean. It's rather sad. So this is what it looks like. It's a soup of debris. So I still imagine that poor guy Charles Moore sailing around and coming across this. Very shocking. So one of the first things that happens when this debris is in the ocean is that things eat it. So even before a plastic may break down, you have animals like sea turtles that are very attracted to those colorful, like a green soda bottle or something like that. They're going to think that that's food. Also, a lot of sea turtles eat jellyfish, and a floating plastic bag looks a lot like a jellyfish when it's underwater. So they will consume this plastic, and what happens is that it fills them up, so they can't pass it. So they cannot take in food that's actually going to nourish them and give them energy. So they starve with a belly full of plastic. Over the past 10 to 12 years, 100% of all turtles that have been necropsied had plastic in their stomachs. So what you're looking at right now is the actual contents of a sea turtle's stomach, plastic that was found. And then about 90% of seabirds and shorebirds also have plastics in their system. the thing that's really sad about the seabirds is that the parents will actually feed plastic to their offspring. So they will bring it back to the nest to feed to their young. So that's kind of the first thing that happens. The next thing that happens, and this is where I want you to think back to on that piece of debris traveling down through all of the different waterways, is that plastic may not necessarily be biodegradable, but it is photodegradable. So ultraviolet light, sun, will break it down. And as it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, it's releasing toxins. So the toxins that go into producing the plastics, you used to hear about BPAs, things like that a lot. They don't really use that anymore, but that leaches out of that plastic into the water column. The other thing that's happening is as those plastics break down, the longer that they're in the water, they adsorb, so they attract other toxins that are in the water. So they hold the other toxins will hold on to the outside of that plastic. And so those are things like PFAS, which there could be 500 talks just on PFAS. So I did put, and I think Teresa will put in the chat a link if you'd like to know more about that. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. However, PFAS can cause liver damage. They can cause infertility, cancer. They can be extremely harmful to our health. And this is what's getting eaten by these animals that eat these, or these organisms that eat these little microplastics. And of course, the longer they're down there, the more that they're going to adsorb. So a microplastic is a piece of plastic that is smaller than 5 millimeters. They think now that there is more microplastic in the water than there is zooplankton. So zooplankton is the base of the food web in the ocean, right? So it's what you've got: phytoplankton, then you've got zooplankton, and then you've got everything else. So the base of the food web for 71% of the planet is plankton. And it's now thought that there's more microplastic than plankton. That's a problem. You have animals like this whale shark. It's the largest fish in the ocean, but it eats the smallest food. So they typically will, they eat krill, and they will just open their mouths and swim and take in just schools of krill. Well, what they also take in are microplastics, which is obviously not healthy for this animal, but it goes beyond that. So then you have the smaller animals. This is a coral, and coral are what are considered heterotrophs and autotrophs. So they have an algae that lives inside of them that through photosynthesis provides energy. So about 90% of their energy comes from these photosynthetic byproducts. But they also hunt. So they have stinging cells that are related to jellyfish. So just like a jelly, they have these stinging cells, and they will hunt for zooplankton, spear them, pull them back, and eat them. Well, it's been shown that coral really like plastic. They really like the taste of it. And sometimes they will actually choose a piece of plastic over zooplankton. So what you're looking at there is a coral, the mouth of the coral, but on top of that mouth is that white piece of microplastic there. So it's getting ready to ingest that plastic. And then you have a little bit higher up that food chain, you have a slightly bigger fish. This is a mandarin goby, which happens to be one of the coolest fish in the world, in my opinion. So they're going to munch on that coral, right? And the algae around it. And then you have a bigger fish that's going to eat the smaller fish. I skipped a couple steps along the way, but that's, of course, a beautiful tuna. And then that ends up on our dinner tables. So the higher up that food chain you go, you have bioaccumulation. So what's happening is that things are becoming more and more accumulated the higher up the food chain you get. So by the time it gets to us, there's a lot of toxins in this food. Again, toxins that cause infertility and liver damage and cancer. all of these things that, we battle in as a species. So what can we do? What are our options here? The first and easiest thing to do, and I'll clarify that in a moment, is to say no to single-use plastics. So I know that it seems daunting for a lot of people. It seems hard to think about not using Ziplocs, things like that, not using plastic wraps. The kitchen is where it impacts me a lot. I'll be like, oh gosh, I wish I didn't care. And I could, no, I'm just kidding. I do not wish I didn't care. But once you get over that hump and over that hurdle, it actually becomes very easy. And it's kind of fun to see how many things you can replace. So I don't need to buy this huge tub of laundry detergent in a plastic container. There are alternatives to that don't have all the water, that they're like little sheets that you can put in, things like that. So every time I go to the store, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to find at least one new alternative to plastic. So it may seem daunting at first, but it is the number one thing that everybody can do starting today to make a huge impact on the health of our planet. This was something that really brought to light ocean plastics. People became very aware of it and very upset about it when this video came out. So I'm not gonna play the video because it's rather disturbing, and there's some bad language, just to beware. But there's a link that Teresa's gonna put in the chat that if you want to watch it. But when people saw that video, it made everybody go, oh wow, this is really bad. And that's the funny thing about working at an aquarium, and really why we do what we do there. It's to educate. So we have animals in captivity in order to educate people about what is out there, why it's important, the beauty of it, so that people want to conserve it. But things like sea turtles and otters and dolphins, and we don't have dolphins, by the way, but these animals that people consider to be cute or friendly, or they are attracted to, like a fuzzy bear or something like that. It's easier to want to conserve those types of animals than it is, say, a shark. So that's something that I strive to do every day, by the way, is to make people less afraid of sharks, because if we're going to conserve anything in the ocean, that's probably one of the top 5. But because this video was a turtle, it really got people, it really impacted them. And I hate that this turtle went through this, but then again, I'm also glad that people saw it, because that really raised awareness about how much plastic debris is out there. Very, very, very quickly, I'm going to hit on this. This is another, like the PFAS, this is another whole 500 talks about, and more than that, about ocean acidification. So by limiting your plastics use, by eliminating those single-use plastics, the other thing that you are doing is reducing the amount of CO2 emission. So the manufacture, the production of plastic, and the distribution of plastics is one of the really leading causes of CO2 gas emission. And that's one of the heat trapping gases. So what happens is when these gases are released into the atmosphere, they drop out, they fall out of the atmosphere, and they go into, CO2 goes into what's called a carbon sink. And the largest carbon sink on the planet is the ocean. So when CO2 sinks into the ocean, it chemically reacts with the water. So the CO2 chemically reacts with the H2O, and it forms carbonic acid. So obviously, carbonic acid is going to raise the acidity in the water. It's also going to use up valuable calcium that's needed. So it really impacts animals that need to create a shell or an exoskeleton, things like crabs and oysters and lobsters and shrimp, things like that. But it also, because it binds calcium, you have animals like coral, and coral reefs are built with calcium carbonate skeleton of the animal. So obviously calcium carbonate skeleton, it needs calcium in order to build it and be strong. And the more acidic the water gets, the more squishy is that's a scientific term. The more squishy the skeleton gets. And the reason that is so important that does not happen is, first of all, it will eventually kill a reef. 25% of all marine life lives on a coral reef. It only makes up 0.1% of the planet. So if you think about that, that's a huge responsibility for coral reefs. It's to protect these little fish so that they can grow up to be big fish, and we can have the biodiversity. Coral reefs are the most biodiverse habitat on the planet. When we lose our coral reefs, we are severely impacting not only the health of the planet, the health of the ocean, but the health of the planet. And then a more direct impact that we are seeing all the time right now is that these hard reefs protect our shorelines. So they absorb wave energy. So these huge storms that are happening out at sea, as those waves come barreling towards the shore, if they hit a nice, healthy, hard reef first, that's going to absorb 97% of that wave energy. So instead of that energy slamming onto the coast and causing erosion and flooding and all of these things that we're seeing quite a bit of right now, it helps to prevent that from happening, to prevent all that energy from slamming down. We are having a lot more storms. They're happening closer together. They are bigger. So our oceans are warming. And because there's more heat now, that fuels and feeds these storms. So they're getting even bigger, and they tend to coincide with El Nino events, which are happening closer together. So they're happening more frequently. So another really important reason to stop using single-use plastics. I could go on and on, but I won't. But there is a link if you want to learn more about ocean acidification, and anybody's also welcome to email me anytime if you have additional questions. I know this is a lot of stuff all at once. So another thing that you can do, buy local, buy organic. If you're buying organic and you're buying from local farmers, you're reducing the amount of runoff that's entering into the Gulf of Mexico, right? You're reducing the amount of runoff that's hitting all of those tributaries along the way. Plus, it's better for CO2 emissions, it's better for so many different things. And then at home, what we can do is, if we have to use fertilizers and pesticides, follow the directions. Follow the manufacturer's directions. Don't apply it right before a big rainstorm. It's just going to wash away. It's just going to wash into that body of water. Follow what the manufacturer says and only use the bare minimum that's needed. And that will help a lot with runoff. And honestly, pick up after your pets. So pet waste has a ton of nitrogen in it. And nitrogen is what contributes to that dead zone, to the algae blooms. So know what has PFAS in them. So know what it is. Reduce your risk. So I put a link, Teresa's going to put a link in the chat about how to know what has PFAS and how to avoid them, how to protect yourself from them. And what happens from that is, not only are you reducing your risk, you're then making choices, right? So if you have a nonstick pan that uses PFAS for the nonstick coating, and then you have a green pan over here, you can choose to buy that green pan instead of the other one. That's power. I mean, that's our buying power as consumers. That's what it's all about. It's supply and demand. So if there's no demand for this, they're not going to manufacture it. If there's a demand for this, that's what they're going to make. That's what they're going to sell. We have a huge amount of power as consumers. And then partnerships. I love to talk about this. We do not live in a bubble. I think we tend to silo, either as individuals or industries or researchers. We silo ourselves into looking at one specific piece, and that's definitely needed. But it's also crucial that we work together as partners to make sure that we are making the best choices, the best decisions we can make. We're communicating this in the best possible way that we can. For us at the Aquarium, partnerships are extremely important. So We also partner with GRDA. I was talking about Jerry Fleming. And actually, we're about to put in a display talking all about debris and ocean plastics and all of that. So very excited about that. And also the Nature Conservancy. We highlight some of their programs that they have, their important programs that are helping water quality within the state. So two really, really important organizations. And then, of course, the Sustainability Alliance, which is so near and dear to us. And partnering with them is really, really beneficial for us. Because if you think back to the beginning of the talk, I was talking about our Think Blue to Go Green initiative. Throughout the aquarium, we have Think Blue to Go Green graphics. And on each of those graphics, we highlight some sort of issue, some sort of environmental issue or problem or hindrance to greater sustainability. And then we always give but here's what we can do. So it's not just here's what's so bad, it's awful, da, da, da. No, it's okay, so this is an issue. And here's what we can do to try and help fix this. And we give suggestions, but we've never had a tool to offer people. So the Sustainability Alliance, Corey was just mentioning, they're launching their TerraScore app. And I know I sound like a commercial for them right now, but that's because I should be, because I can't speak highly enough about this. But TerraScore is an individual sustainability app. So it allows us as an individual to get onto this app and get tips and suggestions and education on how to be more sustainable as an individual in our community, as a community partner. You're able to meet with like-minded people. It's just a really amazing way to, if you're just learning about sustainability, to get started with it. Or if you're, if this is old news for you, but you want to learn even more, which hopefully everybody does, because we should keep asking questions and learning every day. So this is what it looks like, and you can go on to, here's my pitch. You can go on to the App Store and download TerraScore now. But March 9th at 2 o'clock, we're actually going to announce the partnership at the aquarium, and you're all welcome to come. We would love to have you join us. We're very, very excited about this partnership. But that's what I have for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you all so much.
Wow, thank you, Anne. You've given us a lot to think about. But it's important. It's important to constantly be reminded that we do have, some of the responses I've seen in the chat is like, wow, a gentleman there, Krill from UK, saying that they see our plastics and waste wash up on their shores, and it's brings that global community pretty small, and that we do what we think is just in our own little world is really not. It is going outside of that and learning about things that we can do and how it impacts. So it's always good to be reminded. It can be a little overwhelming to think of this, how much we're impacting the oceans, and of course how key they are to our own personal survival, but also all of the animals and plants we share this earth with. So thank you for really sharing how much this is all connected. There's lots of questions coming up, and please continue to share those. But one of the things that I'm seeing that's coming up, and maybe you can point, and I know we have some, and thank you for sponsoring the app or sharing about the app. We're really excited about this partnership with you all. And we do have some ideas in there about ways to reduce your waste, and really, recycling is very important, but it's finding a way not to even get to that point in case that waste doesn't end up where it needs to be. So there's some questions in there about, is there any information about other types of containers like glass in comparison to that, and how biodegrade, just some questions about that. So looks like there was your screen disconnected here, just so you know, and we'll maybe stop sharing and we'll let Morgan help out there. But yeah, do you have a comment there about that in regards to other types of materials as it relates to how it impacts the ocean?
Sure. Yeah. I don't think I was still sharing my screen. Am I? Is that what you had said, to stop sharing?
Okay, maybe that was,
Oh.
thank you. Okay.
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 So yeah, obviously there's other sorts of debris, other sorts of pollution. And I it's one of those things that's fallen out of my Swiss cheese brain. I can't tell you the exact amount of time it takes for glass to break down. I can find it very easily, but
Sure.
definitely not as long as plastic. I can say that. But there are better alternatives, definitely. You know, plastics are just so prevalent that I mean, personally, that's what I do, is I make alternative choices for, I definitely will always choose glass over plastic.
Mhm.
But there are things that you don't even think about. The number one pollutant on beaches is actually cigarette butts, and they take so very long, hundreds of years to degrade, I believe, if I'm correct about that. Again, I haven't thought about that in a little while, but yeah, there's a lot more than just plastic that ends up in the water, but plastics are the ones that stick around.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've provided a lot of resources. Andy here has asked, I think it's a good question. Are there any trash traps along waterways to prevent plastics from getting into the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of initiatives that have been started. Even in Baltimore, for example, the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, they have a floating contraption that travels around and gathers up waste and contains it and holds on to it. There are places in Holland that have almost like a dam that will block off before a body of water enters another body of water, but it allows the water over, but not the debris. Now, when you do things like that, you're risking interfering with fish migration. And so you're interfering with a lot of other things there. As far as the open ocean is concerned, there have been a few projects that have been started to try and collect up the debris and bring it onto shore and I guess put it, incinerate or landfill or whatever the case may be, or hopefully recycle. It's pretty daunting when we can't keep up. So we can clean up the plastics in the ocean and the debris in the ocean all day long, but we're putting 8 million tons of plastic in the ocean every year. We can't keep up with that. So there are things that we can do to help mitigate. However, the only thing that we can really do to solve the problem is to reuse. So reuse as much as you possibly can. And if you look around your house, it's really surprising that like I've seen people throw away a container that has lunch meat or something or whatever, and then go and buy a Tupperware container that I'm like, that's really the same. So it's just our mindset is that we're not used to looking at things that way. But I mean, we could really reuse most things in our homes. We just don't, we're busy, we're busy and we're always on the go.
I think, one of the things you kind of hit on there is, a lot of times our good intentions to do things, to do things in a way that seem better for our homes or our families, sometimes can have some pretty bad consequences. So it's just really being thoughtful about our choices is really what I heard. And I do want to just follow up. It looks like someone did comment on about the trash cleanup, that there are some of these trash traps that also will generate energy, tidal powder energy. So that's the kind of creativity we need to see, where it's kind of multi-purpose and so I love seeing those types of innovation. So I think we, okay, I think there's a couple other questions. Anne, thank you. I know you're going to stick around for just a few minutes if people want to unmic and ask a few questions, but wow, thank you so much. And thank you for the years that you have put into to help educate this community and develop such a beautiful place to come and learn at the Oklahoma Aquarium. Just recently was able to be with you out there, and it's just a magnificent place and educational opportunity to learn so much about the world around us. And you have such a great team over there. And thank you again for the opportunity to partner with you on the TerraScore program and to help you share that message out there. So again, if everyone will give a round of applause, I wish Ann could hear it because it really was amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone joining us. I think there's going to be a poll that's going to be dropped there. So take just a moment. And again, I want to thank all of our sponsors for joining us today and supporting us. So many of you were here with us. We appreciate you. And just if you will take a moment to complete this exit survey, we will see you. We have our, join. Another thing that we have is our First Step program. If you're interested in being a pilot member, it's free. There's micro grant opportunities for these participants. And our first cohort in this pilot is really looking at faith-based communities. So if you're a part of a faith-based community or know of one that you think might be interested in sustainability, please send a note to myself or to Morgan in the chat, or reach out to us. We'd love to help you understand a little more about the program and get you signed up. And let's see. Okay, if you're, so reach out. There we go. And then there's also some coaching opportunities to coach our scorecard members. I know that the Oklahoma Aquarium is one of our scorecard members. Opportunity to learn how to do that coaching that's coming up. And if you're interested, reach out to Teresa here and let her know you have an interest. But if you haven't downloaded the app to get some ideas on how you can reduce your impact in the waterways that we now understand, or more fully understand how much they impact our oceans and then impact our neighbors across the ocean, please, and all those animals in between, please download the app TerraScore. It'll give you lots of great information, connect you with a lot of folks. You can just use the QR code right there. There might be an access code that says just skip on by that. You don't need the access code. That's for special projects, but download the app and let us know what you think and get involved. And let's see what's next here. We've got, yes, and there's lots of challenges that you could do with any of your communities there. We have Earth Day challenges that are already set up. So if you're interested, send a note to myself or Morgan, and we'll send out some more information here pretty soon about it. But if you're interested in getting started with your team, let us know. We'd love to include you this year in Earth Day challenges. And again, thank you to all our sponsors: Williams, PSO Wind Choice, American Waste, Covanta, One Oak, Save Our Streams, the Met, Spirit Air Systems, the Tulsa Farmers Market, Sustainable Advisor Alliance, Bank of the West, and Camp Trevera. Truly could not do this program without all our sponsors. So thank you to our sponsors. And okay, next time we can see you will be April 6th. It'll be first Thursday. It's free. It's a virtual event. And if not now, then when? And this is going to be a great event. We're excited to share. We'll share more information coming up. And I think that may be all of our notes for you. And thank you. But stick around. Thank you, Ann, for sticking around for a little bit more. And again, thank you for such a in-depth review of how we make a difference by what we do every day. And I think sometimes it feels like we don't have an impact, but clearly we do. So thank you. Thank you very much, Ann.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we'll go ahead and stop.